like in a struggle for the fate of creation itself. Delve into a narrative that intertwines myth and morality, exploring the timeless battle between light and darkness, where ambitious angels and mortal souls navigate a treacherous path filled with temptation, judgment, and the ultimate pursuit of redemption. Will the whispers of deceit overshadow the promise of salvation, or will the eternal truths revealed in the Book of Heaven guide them toward a glorious resurrection? The mountain of the gods. The air on the mountain of Eden was thick with sanctity, the very essence of creation clinging to every tree and stone. On this sacred mountain, beneath a sky painted with eternal dawn, God breathed life into the angels. Their forms shimmered with divine light, clothed in gems that refracted His glory, each stone a testament to their purpose and splendor. Among them stood the morning stars, luminous beings, and within their ranks was Lucifer, the son of the dawn, whose beauty rivaled the heavens themselves. Standing atop the peak where the veils between realms were thinnest, God surveyed His creation. To the cherubs Linjaser and Belial, and to the seraphs Latu and Leviathan, He gave dominion over different spheres of existence. He adorned them with houses in the sea, their brilliance reflecting His boundless creativity. "It is good," He said, His voice resounding like rolling thunder, yet as tender as a whisper in the wind. The angels rejoiced, their paradise alive with music and harmony. But there was one tree in the center of the mountain's paradise, radiant yet foreboding. Its fruit pulsed with an otherworldly glow, and it was called the tree of sin. The angels were free to roam and feast from every tree except this one. "Eat not of its fruit," God commanded, His voice layered with both warning and love. Yet among the angels curiosity stirred, a whisper carried by the wind. Jupitaster's temptation. One fateful day, Jupitaster, an archangel renowned for his wisdom and splendor, wandered near the forbidden tree. The serpent Baccus, a creature of enigmatic allure, coiled around its base, its voice as smooth as flowing water. "Jupitaster," it said, its tone both inviting and beguiling, "why has God forbidden you this fruit? Does He fear you might become like Him?" Jupitaster paused, his golden eyes narrowing. "The Lord's commands are just, yet why would He deny us knowledge?" He drew closer, unable to resist the serpent's piercing gaze. "Because," Baccus hissed, "He knows your eyes will open and you will see as He sees. Is that not what you desire? To ascend higher, to become more?" The words planted a seed of pride in Jupitaster's heart. He felt the weight of the serpent's truth, or its lie. A chorus of angelic voices cried out in the distance, their songs tinged with sorrow, sensing the shifting balance. Yet, Jupitaster reached for the fruit. Its texture was like polished obsidian, its scent intoxicating. He bit into it, and a shock of awareness coursed through him. "Klajafus!" he called to the angel nearest him, his voice heavy with newfound conviction. "Taste this. It is the key to understanding." Klajafus hesitated but soon yielded, drawn by Jupitaster's fervor. One by one, Dismef, Eschaf, Quamahas, and Dimhixtel partook of the fruit, their faces illuminated by an unholy radiance. The fall, a cry erupted from the heavens, piercing through the layers of reality. It was the sound of betrayal, of innocence shattered. The Lord's face darkened as He witnessed His creation's disobedience. In swift judgment, He summoned the faithful angels to cast out the fallen. Michael, his blade alight with divine fire, led the charge. "Leave this holy place," Michael commanded, his voice echoing with righteous fury. The fallen angels resisted, their newfound power fueling their defiance. But they were no match for the loyal host. The gates of heaven slammed shut behind them, and the fallen found themselves in a desolate expanse, far from the light of God. "Jupitaster," the Lord declared, his voice both sorrowful and resolute, "you shall be called Satan, and your name shall be a dread among all who remain faithful. Efatas." And the Book of Heaven, amid the chaos, the angel Efatas stood firm, chosen by God to guard the Book of Heaven. This sacred tome recorded every angel's name, their place in the divine order. On that day, many names were erased, their legacies swept away by their own choices. Efatas felt the weight of his duty as he closed the book. The Lord turned to Efatas, whose beauty had deceived so many. "You shall be cast into the dust," he proclaimed, his voice a hammer of justice. The serpent writhed as it was transformed, its form stretched thin, its essence bound to the earth. "This pole shall stand as a warning to all who would follow your path, the garden of the gods. Before the angels were formed, before the mountain of Eden bore the weight of rebellion, there was the garden of the gods. Here, in a realm hidden from all but the divine, God created the Elohim, beings of unimaginable power and mystery. The first among them was Jesus Christ, destined to take on the mantle of humanity and salvation. From his own heart, God fashioned the gods of the Troyad, whose spirits danced like fireflies in the twilight. Yet, even among these lofty beings, rebellion brewed. The fallen Elohim, driven by jealousy, sought vengeance. They sent Efatas to the angels, setting in motion a chain of events that would forever alter creation. The mystery of the book of life. In the far future, when the disciples walked through the gates of heaven, they saw the Lord seated on a white throne. His gaze was piercing, his countenance serene yet commanding. "Lord," they asked, "who is written in the book of life?" The Lord smiled faintly. "The poor, the cast out, the beaten, those who carry the lust of the thorn crown and the cross." His words were a balm to some, a burden to others. "What of the rich?" one disciple inquired, his voice trembling. "The rich are thieves," the Lord answered, "and no thief shall enter the kingdom." The disciples exchanged uneasy glances, grieving for their friends who had wealth. Yet the Lord held aloft a lantern, its light unearthly. "Who among you will carry this light?" he asked. Silence followed until one man stepped forward, trembling yet resolute. "I will," he said. The Lord handed him the lantern. "Then rise," he commanded. The man ascended, his form glowing, and the disciples marveled. The eternal judgment, the heavens and the earth trembled as the final seals were broken. The Lord sat upon his horse, waging war in holiness. By his side were the saints, clothed in the lusts of the cross, their forms radiant with the light of eternity. The book of life, now a blazing sword, marked the end of the old world and the birth of the new, and thus the Lord proclaimed, "Behold, I make all things new." The air was thick with an otherworldly glow, as if the very fabric of creation pulsed with divine power. The disciples stood trembling under the immense canopy of heaven, where a tree unlike any other stretched its branches. Its fruits gleamed with unnatural hues, exuding an aroma that defied mortal comprehension, sweet, savory, and faintly electric. Beside it stood the tree of blood, its bark dark and sinewy, its sap seeping in ruby-red streams, pooling into veins that ran deep into the earth. The Lord's voice rang out, resonant and commanding. "Eat," he said, "taste of the fruits of the tree of life and the tree of blood, for through them shall you gain wisdom." With hesitant hands, the disciples plucked the strange fruits, their surfaces cool and smooth, and bit into their flesh. The flavors exploded, bitter, sweet, and sour, each layer revealing mysteries they could scarcely fathom. Beside them the Lord commanded a lion to kneel, its golden mane shimmering like molten sunlight. "Climb," he said. The disciples obeyed, clinging to the beast as it bore them upward into the uncharted depths of heaven. There, amidst radiant clouds and celestial fire, the Lord turned to them with solemnity. "Now is the time I transform the word. She shall be infallible, perfect in form and purpose." As he spoke, the air grew heavy, charged with a presence both terrifying and awe-inspiring. A griffin and a basilisk descended, their eyes glinting with divine fury. The griffon's feathers shimmered with iridescent power, while the basilisk's sleek, coiling body glowed with venomous energy. The creatures moved toward the disciples. The basilisk spoke in a voice like molten silver. "Purification begins." The disciples fell prostrate as a beam of light surged from the creature's mouth, searing through their souls. The venom was not to destroy, but to cleanse, to strip away the mortal limitations that clung to them like chains. Then, from the light stepped a woman, her form ethereal, her presence commanding. The basilisk coiled around her as though in reverence. "She is the woman of God," the Lord proclaimed, "the herald of mysteries." The woman raised her hands and clapped, summoning forth a procession, a harem unlike any the disciples had ever imagined. Women of every complexion and feature emerged, their garments flowing like liquid light, their names echoing through the expanse. Atis, Salome, Magda, Luanda, Clausali, Sashanine, and countless others, each name carrying the weight of lineage, culture, and divine history. "These," said the Lord, "are the first harem of the Lords. They bear the symbols of the cross and the ice, representing the lusts that sustain creation. Their skins shine with the patterns of serpents and panthers, their forms a testament to both grace and primal power." More names followed, each utterance weaving an intricate tapestry of history. The bloodlines of the Lords were declared: Mezo, Karu, Jaspi, Kali, Balmi. The bloodlines of Jesus Christ were sung in celestial tones: Mizenti, Makau, Mazandat. Even the bloodlines of the Holy Spirit and the saints emerged, each tied to a deep wellspring of myth and theology. The woman, now identified as Sta, stepped forward, her body twisting with serpentine grace. She bore the face of wisdom, but carried the weight of judgment. "Disciples," she began, her voice resonant and melodic, "the journey is far from over. Salvation is layered, complex, and the conditions of eternity shift like sands in a storm." The disciples quaked. "Who then can be saved?" one whispered. Sta's eyes glowed with intensity. "The many eternities are like the lusts of the Lord, each a weapon and a trial. Consider the great Toronto, the harlot seated at countless tables, her lusts entwined with the desires of Pharisees and the world. The judgments will pour upon the Pentecostal Institute, which, though appearing as a wellspring of knowledge, conceals dangers for those who linger too long." She handed each disciple a torn red garment, the fabric rough and faintly warm, as though it pulsed with life. "Wear these," she instructed, "and follow me." She led them to a gate of pearl, which shimmered with shifting colors. Beyond it lay the histories of the world, spinning and undulating like liquid time. Sta raised the sword, its blade forged from divine fire, and cast it into a nearby well. At once the well erupted into blood, its crimson torrent spreading into the rivers of paradise. "This," she declared, "is the blood of Christ, the crucified. In this blood lies salvation, judgment, and the mystery of the thorn crown." The disciples gazed upward. Above them the thorn crown hovered, a burning wheel ablaze with heavenly fire, its spokes inhabited by women who sang with voices like larks. "The thorn crown grants visions," Sta explained, "but also inflicts wounds. To wear it is to carry the Lord's scorn, his victory, and his burden." Birds perched on the thorn crown began to mock the disciples, their cries sharp and derisive. As they donned their red garments, wounds appeared on their skin, mirroring those of Christ. "These are his marks," Sta said, her voice firm but gentle. "Through his suffering you find healing. Through his scorn you discover strength." In the heart of paradise, Sta revealed the mysteries of the Krug, a divine jewel symbolizing Christ's death, and the Prasman, an artifact of his descent into hell. She named the harems of the thorn crown the Great Giganta, which opened the eyes to visions and dreams, and others whose powers remained shrouded in veils of secrecy. The disciples, their wounds now bleeding but radiant, stood in awe as Sta spoke her final command. "You are soldiers of the cross, bearers of his lust, his ice, and his victory. Fight not only for yourselves, but for one another, for through your unity shall the gates of eternity remain open." The kingdom draws near. The air was heavy with anticipation as the crowd gathered beneath the scorching midday sun. A gentle breeze rustled the olive trees, their leaves shimmering like tiny mirrors reflecting the heavens. In the distance, Jesus stood on the crest of a hill, his silhouette stark against the azure sky. His presence radiated an unshakable calm, a serenity that stilled even the restless murmurs of the gathering. Then, with a voice that seemed to echo both within and without, he began to preach. "The kingdom of the heavens has come close." His words, simple yet profound, rolled over the crowd like a wave, stirring the hearts of those who heard them. As he spoke, a magpie descended from the heavens and landed on his shoulder. Its black and white feathers glistened as though imbued with an otherworldly light. Moments later, a pure white dove joined it, settling gracefully on his other shoulder. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, for they recognized these birds as signs, symbols of divine favor and guidance. Jesus raised his hands and great miracles unfolded before their eyes. The lame walked, the blind saw, and the outcasts of society were made whole. But what astounded them most was the appearance of the martyrs, their forms emerging like vapor from the blood-red waves of the sea. They stood before the Lord, their robes gleaming white, their faces unmarked by their suffering. The magpie fluttered its wings and took flight, leading the martyrs toward the eternal city. The dove followed, casting a soft, luminous glow over the path. In the daytime, the magpie was their guide. At night, the dove illuminated their way. These birds were no mere creatures. They were manifestations of divine light. Jesus' voice rang out again. Show that you are grateful to God, who has sent David again, and to Jesus, for the great city has come closer. The Lord will send his angels to take you inside, and the Lord will be your light. The crowd listened in awe as he continued, painting vivid images of the kingdom to come. He spoke of the word standing strong, of a shelter that would endure for eternity. Jesus is the light of those who believe in him and call for him, he declared, his voice filled with both authority and tenderness, the return of David. In the visions that followed, the presence of David loomed large, a figure of profound mystery and power. The Lord will raise David up again, Jesus proclaimed, and establish him as a light. David appeared in the crowd's collective imagination like a black panther, stealthy and commanding. His heart brought justice. His flute inspired love, and his harem, soft and serene, played tambourines, teaching the people the tenderness of the Lord. It was an art to be with the Lord, an art to reign with him. A magpie and a dove rested on David's shoulders, much as they had on Jesus's. A door of light opened before him, and he performed miracles that stunned all who witnessed them. David is the slayer of the godless and the fortress of justice, Jesus said. His words resonated like a song of triumph, stirring the hearts of the faithful. Moses, Samson, and Solomon soon followed, each bearing a magpie and a dove on their shoulders. Their roles in this new kingdom were revealed. Moses was to reign over hell, Samson over the kingdom of the dead, and Solomon over the treasure rooms of the lords. Noah appeared, and with him a new ark was constructed, a vessel not of wood but of spirit, a symbol of salvation for all who sought refuge in the Lord. The holy footnail. In the midst of these revelations, Jesus turned to the prophets and spoke of the thorn crown, the holy footnail, and the path of suffering. The secret of the prophets is in the thorn crown, he began, his voice rich with compassion. Let the prophets be full of the lusts of the Lord, escaping the lusts of the world. The footnail, he explained, was a key, a passage through death and hell, a path that all true Christians must walk. Those who bear this nail have the lust of the Lord and are free from sin, he said, his words like fire branding themselves into the hearts of the listeners. He spoke of suffering as a purification, a means to share in the Lord's glory. Worship therefore the nail, he urged, for it is a key to the kingdom, a lantern on your path. The faithful listened, their faces illuminated by the flames of their own awakening. Some wept, others knelt, and a few stood with clenched fists, resolved to follow the path of the Lord's no matter the cost. The ice temple and the teat of freedom. From this crescendo of revelation, a vision unfolded of the ice temple, a structure gleaming with an unearthly light. Within, a lion stood, speaking words of power and judgment. Now is the time for our apostles to go out and cleanse the word, the lion declared, its voice reverberating through the heavens. The lion held a book in one paw and burned it, symbolizing the purification of the sacred texts. From the east, a raider riding a red lion appeared, its name Terrible. Flames burst from its mouth, consuming the earth's surface. The cries of millions echoed as the ground quaked and the seas churned. Amidst this chaos, a promise emerged. The market has made slaves, but I will set them free. I will plant a teat in their chest, from which the milk of my spirit will flow. The image of the teat rising like a tower brought comfort and hope, its milk and honey flowing over the saints, nourishing them in their trials. The vision culminated with the breaking of 7 horns and the rise of Marian, a child of promise who stood alongside her brother Micah. Their battle against the forces of darkness was fierce, but their faith in the Lord was unwavering. The great revelation. Finally, Jesus spoke of the ultimate triumph of the Lord, of a time when the nails of Christ would become pillars of the heavens. The faithful, bearing these sacred objects, would ascend to the heights, their spirits purified and their paths illuminated. Follow him in all his footsteps, Jesus said, his voice trembling with emotion. The nail is the lantern on your path, the key to your salvation. As the crowd dispersed, their hearts were filled with a sense of purpose and a deep, abiding peace. They had heard the word, and it had transformed them. The kingdom of the heavens was no longer a distant hope. It had come close, and they were ready to enter. The purple beast loomed in the twilight, its eyes glowing with hatred. Marian stood before it, her heart steady, her gaze unwavering. The air was thick with unspoken animosity, and the beast's intent was clear. It sought her destruction, yet more disturbingly, it sought her seed to extinguish her lineage and leave her barren of hope. Marian had hidden a small band of knights in a remote valley, their shelter crafted with care and prayer. But even the most fervent prayers were sometimes silenced. When their haven was discovered, it was annihilated with brutal precision. Their blood soaked into the earth, but from this martyrdom rose life, a paradox only the divine could orchestrate. Trees of immense wealth and beauty sprouted from the ground, their roots twisting like veins of gold. Among them grew nettle plants and thorn bushes adorned with blossoms that shimmered with an otherworldly glow. These blooms whispered the blossom of spirit, their fragrance a balm for the broken. Thus began the legacy of Marian's house, a sanctuary named the gate to the temples of the ice of heavens. It stood as both monument and mystery, a place where the divine kissed the mortal. In those days the fox came, an ethereal guide for those who bore Marian's wound deep in their souls. They were the broken ones, their backs bent under the weight of unseen burdens. They moved with quiet reverence, and at the base of their spines, something miraculous began to grow. The 5th teat, a sacred appendage that soon transformed into a tale of spiritual significance. As this tale took form, the afflicted wept, their tears flowing heavenward, beseeching the divine for understanding. Their journey led them to the eastern domains of Sprit, a place where the sacred tale began to inscribe holy words directly into their souls. These were not words of man, but of the divine, a lexicon drawn from sacred books that shimmered in the eternal ice. When the 6th teat emerged, the heavens roared with thunder. A great shark, its voice resounding like waves crashing against eternal cliffs, proclaimed, "Blessed are those who have come to Sprit." The shark turned, its massive form shifting westward toward the domain of Zedonia. There, it uttered ancient words to break the seals of power that bound the sharks of the heavens. A shark, blue as a midnight ocean, rose from the northern skies, its aura one of deception and dread. To it was given the power to beguile the followers of the woman of the cat-like tribe and the adherents of the purple beast. The shark declared, "The days of the blue shark have begun. Let the earth shiver." And shiver it did. Marian's house. Deep beneath Marian's house lay a hidden cellar, a place carved from the cold stone of history. Here, the shark imprisoned the chosen ones, chaining them with words so unspeakable that even the walls seemed to shudder. The cellar became a sanctum of despair, yet it held the seeds of redemption. In those days, the Efatas, celestial beings with eyes that burned like the sun, descended to earth to honor the purple child. But before their purpose could be fulfilled, a great cloud carried them away to a hidden place. There, they were shown the secrets of the 7th teat, a mystery so profound that they were struck mute, unable to articulate its power. "You have come closer to God," a voice intoned, "by the burning ice. In his presence you cannot speak. You are near assimilation." Books, sacred and profane, were consumed by fire, their ashes mingling with the winds. The voice questioned, "Do you know the names of the 7 great spirits before the face of God, the 7 spirit eyes, the 7 teats of spirit?" Among these was Baccus, the water plant. "Blessed were those who approached Sprit, for they sang the song of Baccus, the song of Baccus. A hymn of life and longing, the song echoed through the icy halls of Marion's house. Baccus, water plant reaching towards the end of the sun. Baccus, miraculous outreach where ice begins and burns like a torch in the night. Your roots dive deep into the sea, your leaves stretch to the heavens. Blessed are those who drink of your spirit and swim in your eternal waters." The melody carried promises of enlightenment and solace. "Lead us to eternal paths," the voices pleaded. "Make holy the purple child within us and teach us to know the light of lights, the King of kings in the house of Marion, the animals of heaven." In a vision of heaven's temple, lions with radiant manes stood guard. They whispered sacred truths, their voices trembling with divine power. "Write these words," they commanded. "They will prepare the new bloodline." Marion found herself led to a house where heavenly sharks gathered. Their words were fluid, their essence dripping with wisdom. "Speak," a voice demanded. "Let judgment come." Thrones rose and celestial animals took their places, their forms shifting between the earthly and the ethereal. Wine flowed freely, inducing a divine drunkenness that loosened their tongues for the judgment of earthly light. Books were opened, their words scrutinized, cleansed, and tested. From the heavens a voice declared, "The giant Jom has been conquered. Blessed are those who understand the secrets of the 7th teat of spirit, Emenius Day." The sacred line Emenius, a figure both fearsome and tender, stood in the holy temple of ice. "Hear the word of the Lord," he roared. "From now on, no one will create without first breaking. I will show you the rope of truth." Emenius spoke of freedom for the enslaved and rest for the weary. "Your blood will become seed," he proclaimed, "and your fields will flourish." The tiger, standing atop the holy mountain, declared the day of the altar, a day when plowshares would become altars and the Spirit of God would fill the earth. The words of Matencia. The air was heavy with an otherworldly stillness when the fire in my tongue first ignited. A voice, deep as the heavens themselves, called out to me from the vast expanse above. "Come, for there are many more things which have to be shown." The words reverberated through me, trembling my soul. The sharks of heaven, ethereal creatures forged from starlight, and ancient mysteries guided me upwards. They floated through the cool waters, carrying me beyond the grasp of time and space. It was a journey to a realm not known by mortals. I was drawn into the presence of Matencia, who sat upon her throne, silent yet regal, her eyes burning with wisdom older than the earth itself. She was bathing in ice. Her skin, pale as the moonlit snow, shimmered with a radiant gold, like the first frost that kisses the dawn. I stood before her in awe as she spoke from a book that seemed to hum with a power beyond understanding. "I am the Queen of Softness," she declared, her voice both gentle and commanding. "My name is Ship. My name is Matencia, and I live on the sea." Her words hung in the air like the scent of ancient incense, resonating deep within my chest. She continued, "I carry this world on 4 fundaments. I work with my healing hands away to the books. I am the spirit of love." Her hands, which were at once delicate and strong, wove visions of a world held together by the delicate balance of creation. She spoke of mothers, of those who had created them, of a house built on 9 pillars, high in the clouds where the ice reigned supreme. Her gaze pierced through me as she claimed dominion over the sun, vanquishing its virtues and powers. Beneath her, enemies lay trampled, crushed beneath her will as though they were nothing more than dust. "I carry 15 stars on my head," she intoned, "and 7 holy books live in my heart. I deal with fire and sulfur. I have defeated them." Under my feet they are as a footstool of my throne. I live in ice and created the mothers of ice. I felt the chill of her words as they froze the very air around me. She was the master of a realm where ice reigned and hearts were healed. The creatures who guarded her were not mere beasts but spirits, 4 tigers strong as mountains standing as protectors at her feet. Her 2 eagles were ever vigilant, circling the heavens with relentless devotion, never resting, for they bore her word. I share wisdom in front of my gates, she said. I am faithful to those who are faithful to me. Visions are in my right hand and dreams are in my left. Wake up so that my angel of sleep will take you. The visions flowed in my mind like a river fed by countless tributaries. I have sent my oxels to you, she murmured, to bring you through the hours of the night. Yes, my night watches over you from the 1st to the 12th hour. I saw them, small winged figures, shining like stars, guiding souls through the dark hours of the night. Her voice took on a new urgency as she spoke of the 5th night watch, when I would see the sea and be drawn toward the coming day. The cords of time would pull me to new horizons. The vision faded, and a sensation of deep cold and quiet took over. The rider on the dragon. A sharp pain in my throat surged, and I felt as though my body had been consumed by fire. It was the kind of fire that burns through ice, cold yet searing. A voice came, soothing yet commanding, "Drink of the holy ice waters of heaven, for you have to prophesy many more things." I drank, and the waters were cool and sweet like the first touch of winter's breath on a spring dawn. The fire within me began to settle, and I was granted a brief respite. Yet, even in my stillness, visions poured forth, bright as ice, and surrounded by the cold embrace of the waters. "Do you know the spirits of God?" I was asked. Before me stood a bitter spirit, his form cloaked in sorrow, his tears like thunderstones, the very weight of his grief turning the heavens dark. "Do you know the bitterness of God?" The voice echoed. I saw it, the world cracking open. The earth burned as rivers of fire poured forth, while a voice booming like the roar of the sea demanded, "Can you still wrap your treasures when Mura visits the earth?" And then, in her arms, Mura bore a fox, Zurastal, a creature whose significance was as great as the universe itself. "The secret of the fox is huge," she declared. "In ecstasy are those who know the treasures of Zurastal. New veins will let them save the blood." The fox wore a crown crafted from pure stones, and when it spoke, my blood surged with a power I had never known. "Your blood will give birth to the seed of ice," it said. "It will burn as a torch in the night to lead those who give rest to rest." As its words sank deep into my soul, I felt my fears harden, transforming into stone. No power could break them now. The fear had led me here, to the ice and to the book of Zurastal. A book was opened before me, its golden letters etched in stones, and as I watched, they began to shift, each letter forming visions that danced like fire on ice. Zurastal spoke again. "You who seek the light will be sucked up by a stone. In ecstasy are those who find the eternal stone, for eternal veins will save the blood there." Pure light fell upon me like cool waters, grounding me as the earth beneath my feet glowed with an eerie, otherworldly light. And then a voice spoke from the altar, "In ecstasy are the dead who die in Zurastal from now on." The vision expanded. Thrones rose from the sea. Altars ignited from the bowels of the earth. Graves opened wide as the regions, the winds, and the very elements gave up their dead. The sea, the mountains, the rivers, the nests of birds all released their dead. Books were opened and altars caught flame. A voice cried out, "This is the day the dead have to be given back." The lights of the firmaments, the very stars themselves, gave up their dead, and the suns and moons bowed in reverence. And again a voice spoke, "The light of Zurastal has come, and the darkness was not able to split it. In ecstasy are those who die in him now, for they will find rest." I saw the marketplace fall from the heavens, a star crashing to earth. The market screamed in terror, accusing the saints, and the merchants were bitten by scorpions. They too began to give up their dead, and the rider on the dragon appeared. The rider, human in form, rode upon a creature that seemed born of both nightmare and myth. The dragon was an embodiment of terror, yet the rider commanded it with ease. All slave, master, merchant, customer, Jew, and Greek bowed before the rider, filled with astonishment. "Who can ride the dragon?" they asked. "How is it possible that a human rides the dragon?" They followed the rider, mesmerized, as though he carried the very bartender of spirit in his hands. But when he came upon the fox, he broke its neck. A great weeping burst forth from the heavens. For 60 days and nights women wept, and yet, even in their grief, it was spoken. In ecstasy are those who have the wound of Zoroaster. The heavens trembled with sorrow as the women mourned the fox, and then the angel Sarsia appeared, bringing Zoroaster before the face of God. The rider of the dragon, after crossing the earth, presented himself before God as well. Sarsia, locked in battle with the rider over the body of Zoroaster, remained silent for 60 days and nights. Afterward, the lion before the face of God spoke, and from his mouth poured mountains of fire and ice, and from his tail came seas of fire and ice. The words spoken were sealed, and the rider of the dragon was placed upon the altar. From that altar came a black panther to devour him. Heavy hailstones fell, splitting the merchant ships, and a voice declared, "Woe to those who live on the earth." The seal of the snakes was broken. And now those who ate the medicine of Zoroaster and drank from his syrup would find themselves in ecstasy. Even those who carried the venom of the snakes within them would be purified. And the flower of God, having devoured the seed of the rider of the dragon, brought drunkenness to the followers of Zoroaster. The fall of women had begun, and with it, the winds of change began to blow over the earth. The fall of the prophets. The air in the desert was heavy with a longing for something unseen, something unsaid. The prophets of God, long suffering beneath the scorching sun, moved within the walls of their temple. Their voices, once bright and full of life, had become murmurs. Their mouths were sealed, yet their hearts burned with the weight of unspoken truths. They had cried out to the heavens, desperate, "How long must we remain silent? When will the seal of the dogs be broken?" Their anguish was a physical pain, a fiery torment that seared through their souls. Their agony was not only of body, but of spirit. This seal, this invisible burden, kept them from the words they so desperately needed to speak, and the silence crushed them. But from the silence came an answer, a faint flicker of light. An archangel appeared, its wings shimmering like a flame against the darkened skies. It was no savior, but a messenger sent to comfort them with the smallest of hopes. It spoke, its voice a soft whisper amid the tumult of their suffering. "I can warm your hearts with a small flame, but the wound is beyond my healing. The Lord has bound my hands." The sky itself seemed to crack open as a door appeared above them. Behind it, a voice boomed, a command, a judgment. "Let them be grafted onto the prophetic races." And so began the war among the prophets, a war unlike any before. It was a war of ideals, of beliefs, of divine fates unfulfilled. And it came to be known as the fall of the prophets. The heavens themselves burned with the fury of the conflict, and the Lord in his wrath brought fire to the tree of prophets, cleansing the world with a purging fire that lasted for 80 days. The Lord spoke, his voice filled with finality. "No longer will my hand be on the unfaithful prophet." He cast them down, each one brought to a rock beneath the earth. This rock became known as the Dread of the Apostles, a place where the fallen prophets were bound for eternity. The dog itch. The world was never the same after that cleansing fire. The prophets' voices were silenced, but the earth began to turn again in a rhythm that was both new and old. In the sacred tabernacle, a clock was built. Its ticking marked a new era, a time for the hearts of the prophets to finally rest. The Lord spoke, "The days of the deception of the prophets are over." The hearts of the faithful were tested, their very words measured against the divine clock. Books, holy and profane, were placed upon the altar of the Lord. The fire that burned there consumed them all, reducing them to ash and smoke. The builders of the world, the races that had toiled for the Lord's glory, gathered before him. The Lord set a fire among them, purging their spirits. The winds of the divine swept across the earth, and a garden born from the Spirit's breath began to grow. The garden of Genesis, watered by the tears of those who had been faithful, sprouted like a new world, fresh and untouched. Emenius, the spirit of the ark and the throne, was poured out upon the earth. The winds of fire, the flames of purging, blew fiercely. The consciences of the saints were delivered, freed from the spirits of the waters. In this new world, the earth trembled with wonder. The heavens themselves seemed to be reborn. At the end of the hedge, in a place untouched by time, the woman of the cat-like sat. She too would rise again to deceive the children of the kingdom. She held in her hand a teat tree, a symbol of the binding of souls. With its 7 false teats and stars, she could seal books and words, and through these seals she would lead the children into temptation. The children, terrified of her power, cried out to the Lord, asking him to break the seal of the dogs. But the Lord sent his oxel once more, its voice gentle yet unyielding. I can give your hearts a little light, but I cannot remove the sting, the oxel spoke, for the Lord has spoken his word. The children found rest, but it was not the rest they had hoped for. They were led by the Lord to the heart and house of Marion, where their wounds could be healed, but the healing was not easy. The teat tree of the Spirit grew there, and its thorns were sharp. Many children, unable to bear the pain, turned away from the Lord. These days came to be known as the fall of the children. Yet the Lord, in his mercy, took care of them as a father cares for orphans. He led them to a rock where they found eternal rest, and this place was called the rest of the hermitates, the seals of the Utmirs. In a moment of profound vision, the Lord spoke to me, his voice both distant and intimate. Do you know the times of Utmir? With these words, he handed me a cup of stone from the altar. As I drank, an icy tremor coursed through my body. I trembled as I had never trembled before, and the dread of the Lord fell upon me like a heavy shroud. The Lord showed me the great mystery of creation, the heavens and the earth, the spirits of God coming together. I saw Matencia, the divine mother, approaching her man, Emenius. She gave birth to Mikai, the son of the spirit who was sent to an evil gender. The earth did not accept him. With Mora, she gave birth to Marion, the daughter of the spirit, and again the earth rejected her. And then, from the divine union of the Lord and his spirit, a child was born, destined to become a great prophet. Yet, like the others, he was not wanted. And so he built the holy pillar, the foundation upon which the Spirit of God would stand in the face of darkness. The Lord had decreed that darkness would reign over the earth, but even in the darkness, a deceiver with eyes of fire flames was established, a force that would lead the earth toward destruction. Mikai sent his angel Sarsia to the ends of the earth, declaring, "The judgment of the Lord is great," and it was. As I gazed upon the mysteries of the Utmirs, the heavens and the earth seemed to unfold before me, layer by layer. The seals were broken one by one, each revealing greater truths and deeper secrets. The temple of Matencia. I found myself in the temple of Matencia, a place where the waters of flowers flowed in perfect harmony and the flames of holy fruits burned with a divine intensity. Matencia, the Spirit of the Lord, bathed in the temple bath, and the altar sang with watery sounds. The city of the Lord was being born, a city that would house the faithful for eternity. In this sacred place, Matencia wiped away the tears of the saints, leading them in a song known only to them. She led them deeper into the forests of her spirit, where no one could live but those who bore her seal. This seal, a watermark, marked the faithful as her own. Through her, the Lord restored the office of women, raising up priestesses to serve him. The heavens blossomed and the fields brought forth flowers that intoxicated the saints, filling them with a divine euphoria, the times of the Lord's. And so I was carried to the temple of Aminius, where the heavens opened before me. The Lord spoke, "When you open the seal of my temple, you will be carried to new heavens." As I entered the temple, I felt a great intoxication, a surrender of self to the divine. I drank deeply from the cup of tears, and in those tears, I found my salvation. Aminius, praise comes to your gates. Praise from far, reaching your heart, the heart of the great mystery now unlocked. I will drink the cup of tears to the last drop and be one with you forever, Spirit of God. To know you is worth more than the instruments of war. And as I fell into the embrace of the divine, I saw the world as it was meant to be, free from the bondage of false prophets and deceivers, a world in which the tears of the Lord would wash away the sins of the earth. The sea of ice. From the sea of ice came a great dragon, Efatas. Its heart was vast, and within it, souls were crushed between its walls, living only from death. And from this dragon, the heart of the earth was devoured. Yet in the cold, a lion heart arose, crowned with a great majesty. The earth trembled beneath its gaze, and the heart of the child and the mother, lost in their grief, were devoured by the dragon. As the cold swept over the earth, the Spirit of God took me to the barn of eternal food, where the visions of the last days would be revealed to me. And as I ate, my body burned with heat, yet my legs became sweet as honey. And the Spirit spoke, "Eat, for you will see the visions that will give you insight into the last of the days." The visions came, and I saw the big America, a land sitting as a hippopotamus by many waters. But this land, consumed by its own atrocities, was to be devoured by the swarm of flies that came to feed on its flesh. And so it was that the dragon of the sea was cast into a cave, sealed forever. The earth, now empty and cold, awaited its final judgment, the day of flesh. The world was in the grip of a strange and profound transformation. A shadow stretched over the heavens, casting long fingers of obscurity across the land. The hedge of the Lord's, once a humble boundary, had swollen, becoming vast and towering. In its growing presence, a goat, humble and ordinary at first, began to swell against the stars, its form stretching unnaturally, as if mocking the firmament itself. But in the silence of its ascent, the hedge, unhurried and omnipotent, enveloped the creature, hiding it from view. No sound marked its passing. Then, like a distant echo of the goat's ascent, a kettle, once simple and round, grew against the stars, stretching in a way that defied nature. Yet again, without noise, it too was consumed by the hedge of the Lord's, swallowed whole by the unseen forces that guided this strange moment. In that silence, the Spirit spoke, its voice both a whisper and a shout, reverberating through the very fabric of the world. These days, it said, were called the Big Spain. As the words lingered in the air, heavy with meaning, the soul of the Lord's, an entity of impossible scale and purpose, expanded, a manifestation of divine will, and began to cover the hedge of the Lord's as if to protect it or perhaps to claim it for its own. The earth, once teeming with the mundane, had begun its sacred transformation. I, too, was part of this unfolding. Drawn to the hedge, I reached out, and as my fingers brushed against the living barrier, I ate from it, the fruits of the Lord's eternal and pure. The soul of the Lord's flowed into me, not as a thought, not as a force, but as an overwhelming presence, filling the space where my heart had once beat with a power that transcended comprehension. The earth beneath me trembled, and I was led into a barren wasteland where savage cat-like creatures sat in wait. Their eyes, wide with thirst, glimmered with desperate anticipation. They waited for a savior, for someone who could quench their agony, but no one came. The desert remained silent and unyielding. And then, as if from the heavens themselves, a star fell. It plummeted, burning like a comet, but as it hit the ground, the barren earth became fertile. Life began to surge through the dust and stones. The Lord's voice, booming and endless, echoed through the desert, declaring, "Now the big Spain has fallen. I heard once again the soft whining that had haunted me, an undercurrent of anguish that ran through the world itself. The Lord appeared before me in his fiery chariot, a vehicle that seemed not of this earth, but of another realm entirely. His spirit spoke, calling me forth. Come, it beckoned, so that I can show you things. And so I ascended, lifted by forces unseen, into the fiery chariot of the Lord's. We flew over the barren wasteland once more, and again I found myself standing in a place devoid of life, but no longer empty of meaning. Before me, the flames of the Lord's danced in the air, bright and terrible. Upon their shoulders they carried cards, ancient, worn, but brimming with purpose. These were not mere symbols. They were the vehicles of fate itself, moving with an eerie precision, like some kind of divine prediction unfolding before my eyes. They moved with intent, as though they were the very will of the divine in motion, and in the heat of their presence a great prophecy began to form. Words, impossible to decipher at first, bloomed in the air, tongues of fire licking at the heavens. And then miracles, so many miracles, poured from the flesh of the Lord's. Blessed are they who come to the altar of flesh, the Lord proclaimed, for this flesh is eternal. The soul of the Lord's descended, enveloping the altar in its all-consuming power. And then I saw them, those who had been stripped of flesh, now robed in the eternal flesh, their forms radiant and unending, untouched by time or decay. A great multitude approached, their faces alight with devotion and wonder, drawn to the fire flames of the Lord's. The Lord's voice resounded once more. Blessed are they who have come to the ark of flesh. And when the ark spoke, many fell to the earth, as though struck down by the sheer weight of its message, their bodies crashing to the ground in a collective stunned collapse. From that moment, the hedge of the Lord's began to take on a new form, one that no longer symbolized a barrier, but a living, breathing entity of flesh. The tear of flesh, the transformation of the world was not yet complete. Yes, blessed are those who believe that the flower has become flesh, the Spirit continued. For the word of God has manifested in the flesh, and in this flesh you shall find your salvation. I was caught in a whirlwind of thought, watching as the world bent and reformed under the weight of divine purpose. And blessed are those who believe the hedge of the Spirit has become flesh, the voice continued, urging those who would listen to embrace this new reality. For they will receive the gifts of flesh, and in their hands they will shape a new earth. I could feel it in the air. The Spirit had become like the soul of the Lord's, guiding the winds of the waters. The souls of the Lord soared above the earth, above the heavens, covering them in the final hour. The weight of their flight pressed down on me, urging me forward, showing me the path ahead. Let the souls of the Lord's lead you to the ark of flesh, the Spirit intoned. For in this ark you will receive the eternal flesh. The words hung in the air, thick with meaning. The walls, the very earth beneath me, seemed to shift, becoming flesh to testify and judge this new reality. You have approached an earth of flesh, the Spirit proclaimed, an earth where they cannot eat each other away anymore. The flesh of the Lord's is eternal. No longer could the teeth of the earth bite and tear. No longer could the temples stand as places of corruption. The altar began to speak, its voice a low rumble that trembled through the very bones of the earth. Now is the time, it proclaimed, that everything shall become flesh, and nothing shall be hidden from the face of the Lord's. The sea of flesh. I saw them, the followers, worshiping the holy flesh with unwavering devotion. They had no rest day or night as they brought the holy tears in bowls to the earth. These tears, the divine essence, would bring forth miracles of flesh, gifts to those pure enough to receive them. And those who drank from the tears were overcome with a deep, intoxicating joy. They became vessels of flesh, conduits for the miracles of the Lord's. They had access to the flowers of flesh, sacred and pure, and the 7 pieces of flesh before the ark of the Lord's. In the temple, the holy flesh spoke to them, urging them to remain vigilant. Watch, it said. The hour has come when the tables of the laws have become flesh. And so they drank deeply the laws of the universe inscribed in their very hearts. They were led to the waters of Cabanal, to the sea of flesh, where a great crowd stood at the gates. They had the seal of Matencia, their flesh a strange mixture of ice and fire. I heard a scream from the heavens, and a door slammed shut. The mystery deepened, the milk of the Lords. I saw Matencia transformed, becoming an eternity, a pearl glittering in the sun. She was both beautiful and tragic, her wounds many but her spirit unbroken. She, along with Cabanal and others, was made in eternity, and with them the spirits of God became one, their flesh joined in unity. And it was in this union that the true mystery of flesh was revealed, a mystery that led to the oneness of the spirits of God. The flesh of the Lords came to maturity, leading the saints to victory, drying their tears, and bringing comfort. And the Lord spoke, revealing a great mystery. Only the prophets are allowed to marry, he declared, a truth that resonated deep within the fabric of the earth. In the desert, the Lord showed me a spirit bound by 70 chains, chains of unholy covenants made by his people. With a single act, the Lord poured water into the spirit's mouth, breaking the chains that had bound it. The days of unholy covenants were over. I was fed, like the predators of the desert, the milk of the Lord's, pure and endless. And I saw them, those who had emerged from the desert of temptation, bathed in the milk of the Lord, satisfied beyond all measure. And the Lord appeared, dazzling in his pure radiance, with lightning flashing beside him, illuminating the world. Blessed are those who drink from the milk of the Lords, he declared, for they shall walk on eternal paths. The valley of dry bones. The wind stirred in the silence of the mountaintop as I beheld the holy teat, growing larger as it shimmered in a radiance like fire. It swelled, burning with an intensity that struck me as sacred and terrible. The voice of the Lord broke the stillness, reverberating through the air as though the very mountain quivered in its presence. And now the word of the Lord has become bone. In that moment, I watched as the teat transformed before my eyes, its blazing essence turning into a stark, gleaming bone. The bone moved, devouring the flesh that surrounded it. A great and sorrowful understanding washed over me as the Lord spoke again. Gloriously are those who are devoured by the carnivores of the earth, for to them belongs the kingdom of God. The words hung in the air, their weight heavy, their meaning elusive. I saw those who had been consumed by the carnivores, figures that had once been whole, now shattered by the earth's beasts, appear before the throne of God. Their eyes were bright with the intensity of 1,000 stars, and in their hands they held staffs of bone, long and powerful, symbols of dominion and kingship. Know then, the Lord's voice resonated once more, that only those who are devoured by carnivores can approach Mikai. In the days that followed, many of these figures, devoured and remade, came to Mikai, finding solace among one another, a strange unity in their shared experience of being consumed and reborn. And I too found myself wandering through a valley of dry bones. The scent of ash was thick in the air, and the earth beneath my feet seemed heavy with the weight of forgotten lives. Amidst these scattered remains, I saw the eternal bones of the Lord lying in sacred repose. I approached them with reverence, and as I touched them, something stirred deep within me. A sudden surge of power coursed through my veins, my hands ablaze with an otherworldly fire. In that moment, I was filled with prophecy, my voice rising in strange tongues, my words swirling in languages that no mortal had ever spoken. It was as though the Lord had breathed his fire into my soul, lighting me from within. The bone cannot devour the eternal flesh. The Lord's voice spoke again, its depth resounding through the valley. Gloriously, he that carries the eternal bone, for his bones will not be broken, and death shall have no dominion over him. He who has seen the eternal teat on the eternal bone shall forever be satisfied. I was overcome, a brilliant light enveloping me, blinding in its intensity. For what seemed like an eternity, I could not see, could not speak, could not move, only feel the divine presence. When the light receded, the Lord raised me up, and we descended to a place called the Old America. There I beheld the faces of 3 tribal chiefs carved in bone. each visage glowing with an inner light that illuminated the darkness around us. The Lord covered the glowing teats on their faces, and the world was plunged into darkness. "Do you wish to know the mystery of the 3 tribal chiefs?" the Lord asked. I nodded, and the Lord began to speak. The 3 tribal chiefs are 3 spirits that guard the treasures of the earth. These treasures are found only in the deepest darkness, the deepest ice, and in the places where the spirits with the most heads reside. Only those who had been devoured by the spirits of God could reach these sacred places where the holy feet of the Lord stood. And then, in a great act of love, the Lord devoured me. Aha! I felt the weight of the divine presence, as though I stood upon the altar itself, and realized with a sudden shock that I was on the altar of the Lord, the dark man called Aha. The Spirit of God fell upon me like a great intoxication, and I grasped a black staff named the Holy Devouring. With it, the Lord struck many, bringing them to rebirth. Aha, bearing the honey of the Lord, carried it to the ark, where holy songs began to rise in the air. The staff became as a flute in the hands of the Spirit, and I understood its power to heal, to comfort, and to teach. The eternal prayer. In those days the Lord spoke to me, "Blessed are those who have approached Aha, and blessed are those who partake of his fruits." I saw a great multitude devoured and reborn, their eyes dark as ice, riding upon those who had once consumed them. These riders were strange, their faces ever-changing, their identities wrapped in mystery. They wore eternal armor, names unknown to any but themselves. And they bear the power to heal eternal wounds, the Lord spoke again, and they carry with them scars of a foreign ancient nature. Their mission was clear, to restore the holy and eternal prayer, and to teach the harvest of the earth to pray these words. Let us not celebrate the works of the arbors, but bind our tongues and lead us to Cabanal. Let it be that it is you speaking when we speak. Let your holy oxals watch over the hidden corners of our mouths. Let it be your breath when we breathe, and teach us the words of Matencia. Write them on the tables of our soul. Bind our heads with your holy ropes, so that we think the thoughts of Matencia in her visions of flesh. Give our thinking flesh and bone with wings of your spirit. The prayer continued, an invocation to the divine, a plea for wisdom and strength in the face of the eternal battle between light and darkness. As I spoke the words, I felt the power of the spirits around me, and in that moment, I understood that these prayers would guide us all towards salvation. The appearing of Baccus, and then in the heavens, I saw a 2-headed thistle serpent, its power vast and consuming. Its mouths open, speaking words of untold authority, but none could understand them. The beast roared, and rivers of fire poured from the rocks. I could feel the earth tremble beneath me. And then I saw the rider named Hell, sitting upon a reddish horse, his kingdom of destruction spreading across the land. In his hands he held the cup of Baccus, a cup filled with wine that never ceased to flow, its power both intoxicating and deceptive. The cup named Baccus became flesh, I heard the Lord say, and with it came the power to deceive many. And so it was that those who received the mark of Baccus, the number 666, followed the cup of wine to a rock, where a great laughter rose to the heavens. But heaven wept, and the foundations of the earth trembled in fear. And then a red pearl appeared in the heavens, split in two. The Lord spoke once more. Mix then the meal and the wine. The battle began. Baccus, the beast of the lords, roared against the saints, who sought comfort in the ancient books. Yet none could read the words that came from the beast's mouth, for they were written in a language foreign to them. And for 1,063 days the saints wept. Finally the Lord descended upon Baccus, grasping him and breaking him, causing a great cry to rise from the earth, and hell alike. The kingdom of hell was swallowed by the earth, and the horse on which hell rode, with its 3 eyes and fiery breath, fell silent. But Baccus continued to speak, complaining bitterly of the plague sent upon him by the Lord. The heavens stood still for 30 hours, and when they moved again, the earth began to heal. And so the Lord spoke, Baccus will be broken 3 times. the recovery of the apostles. The wine of the Lord flowed once more, and those who had been inflamed for his sake became like thistles, following the two-headed thistle serpent. The Lord roared in those days, and a two-headed lion appeared in the heavens, reading from the books of the serpent and translating them for the saints. Now the office of the apostles has been restored, the Lord proclaimed, and they will no longer be persecuted in my temples. And the apostles found rest, as did their generations. The Lamb of Baccus. The Lord took Baccus and cast him into a great oven where his feet were broken. The wines of heaven began to flow, and the saints, bearing the wounds of Christ and the prophets, were strengthened for the last days. The Lamb of Baccus, a false symbol, gave light to blind the two-headed eagle, but the lamb was torn and consumed by the fire. Yet it raised great words to the heavens, and the prophets fell intoxicated, some turning against the Lord. In the end, the lamb sought comfort in the remnants of Baccus, but the fire of the oven had consumed him. And so the lamb wept for 46 days, the salvation of the wine, and the reddish horse took on a second head, bringing forth books that spread fire from the heavens. Fear gripped those who read them, but the Lord granted me a key to open the bloodlines of the prophets. Now the veins of the prophets are opened, the Lord declared. The wine will be saved and will no longer fall to the earth. And so the seeds and herbs flowed between the wines, and the earth was healed once again. The prophecy of the second coming. The desert wind howled through the barren wasteland, a scorching breath sent by the Lord himself. The prophets, clad in their coarse, hairy cloaks, shivered despite the heat, their faces gaunt with the weight of the world upon them. They stood in the barren silence, alone in their trials, but each knew their role was sacred. In the distance, a shadow shifted, a burning wind that seemed to speak. The Lord, with his voice like thunder, commanded, "From now on, the apostle will be the father of the prophet. Cursed is every apostle who does not punish his sons, and cursed is every apostle who does not cover his sons." The air grew heavy with the solemnity of his words. The prophets lowered their heads, understanding the gravity of their mission. Their task was one of purifying, of cleansing, of judgment. And though the weight of their new command pressed on their souls, they knew that it was their destiny to bear the pain. A flash of light illuminated the sky. The Lord, in his infinite wisdom, had granted them not only the burden of prophecy, but also the means to endure it. He had given them hairy blankets for warmth, the kind that would serve as both shelter and a symbol of their commitment to his will. The prophets knew that they were to live in this desert of isolation for a time, their only companions the harsh winds and the scorching sun. And then, as if to remind them of their path, the Lord commanded the destruction of many books that had twisted the minds of the prophets. The air shimmered as flames consumed the written word. Yet in the fire, something new emerged, a book, fresh and untainted, a book of wisdom for those pure of heart. "In bliss are they who read the words of this book," the Lord said, his voice filled with both promise and warning. "They will understand it and act upon it, for they will be called kings of the lords and pourers of the second wine." The ground beneath their feet seemed to pulse with energy, a reminder of the sacred task they had undertaken. The Lord had chosen them not only to endure the trials of life, but to be vessels of divine power. As the prophets stood, their hearts burning with the righteousness of their calling, they were approached by figures glowing and ethereal. These were the pourers, those who had followed the ancient bloodlines of angels, and now they came to serve the prophets, guiding them in their journey through the desert. The judges, those ancient figures of authority, were there as well, their bodies glowing with the power of the divine. They bore the flames of bliss, their every movement a testament to their connection with the heavens. They performed miracles, signs, and wonders. They were the fathers of the apostles, the ones who had been entrusted with the knowledge of the sacred bloodlines. And in the glow of their presence, the animals of heaven, creatures of flame and light, descended to earth, their forms shimmering with the power of the divine. And then The Lord spoke again, his voice soft yet filled with authority. Come, look upon the bloodline of the two-headed one. This generation is great. They have eaten from the bitter fruits of Rietel, and they have become pure through the second Murrah. The prophet bowed his head, his spirit humbled by the sight. He had been taken up into the heavens, his soul standing before the Lord, who was beyond comprehension. The Lord's words echoed in his mind, Stand on your feet, for you are one of them. They have reached the highest state of purity, and they will move among the glowing coals of the most holy altars. They will open the gates of the deepest holiness of God. The two-headed ones were mighty, their power unmatched, their connection to the divine unbroken. They had the keys to the holiest places, and it was their duty to serve the Lord, offering up the purest sacrifices, the most sacred worship. They bore the suffering of the Lord upon their wings, serving day and night, never resting. And as the prophet beheld these two-headed ones, he saw their wings, a sight so pure, so unearthly, that it defied description. They were beings of flame, their movements an eternal dance of devotion. They were full of the dying of the Lords, and they worshipped the soul of the Lords without ceasing. Their eyes, burning with the light of truth, gazed upon the world with a love so fierce, it consumed them. In the distance the Lord appeared, a seven-headed beast sitting upon his throne. The heavens shook as the beast spoke, his voice like the roar of thunder. 7 times will the earth be purified, he said. And when it is, it will belong to the Lord. The words resonated deep within the prophet's soul. He saw tongues of fire issuing from the mouths of the beast's heads, flames that licked the air like the tongues of dragons. He could feel the heat of them, the weight of the truth they carried. But only those who walked in the powers of the Lord could understand the meaning behind the words. The beast, with its serpentine mouths and eyes like those of ducks, was a vision of power, of mystery, and of divine judgment. The prophet trembled in its presence, overwhelmed by the magnitude of what he had witnessed. I have shown you the dragon of the Lords, the Lord said, his voice gentle yet filled with finality. You are blessed to have seen it, but what you have witnessed is beyond what words can describe. And then the prophet saw something that defied all explanation. A bush, burning, radiant, its branches reaching toward the heavens, and within it, the head of a lion appeared. The lion spoke words that echoed like thunder, but they were too many to count. The words were ancient, timeless, and their meaning beyond mortal comprehension. Before the prophet stood a sea, vast and endless. It was not an ordinary sea, but one filled with wine, a strange and holy mixture of fire and ice. Those who stood before it, those chosen to decipher the heavens, held palm leaves in their hands. They waved them, offering them as symbols of their devotion. There, in the presence of the sea and the fire, were those who had overcome the blasphemous beasts. Their eyes were like those of birds, vast and deep, filled with the ebb and flow of the tides. Their number was immense, a multitude that could not be counted. And they sang the song of the second Moses, a hymn of deliverance, a song of liberation from the apostolic tribes. These were the pure ones, the ones who had been sanctified through the blood of the second Christ, who had taken refuge in the blood of the altar. They were untouched by the serpent's poison, their blood mixed with the precious blood of the Lord's. They had crossed the threshold into the second millennium kingdom of the Lord's, where they drank from the holy wine of Abraham and were nourished by the sacred milk of the second Sarah. And then the angel Torio descended, bringing with him a key that would unlock the bloodline of the three-headed ones. These beings so powerful were spared for the final days, entrusted with guarding the gates of the night. The angel spoke, his voice filled with urgency. Trust the Lord your God, for he has sent these three-headed ones to guide you. The angel's presence was a reminder that the days were short, that the time for salvation was drawing near. Preach the second gospel, the angel instructed. Let your heart be sprinkled by the holy blood of the second Christ and unite with him as with the animal of your spirit. And as the angel spoke, the prophet felt a burning coal placed in his heart. It was a sign, an anointing, marking him for the works of the Lord. You are chosen, the angel said, to bring the word of mercy to the four corners of the earth. Teach them the mysteries of the second wine of suffering and salvation. The prophet trembled, but his heart was full of the light of understanding. He was ready. The Lord had given him the strength to endure, the wisdom to decipher the words of the ancients. He would preach, and in his words, the second kingdom of peace would take root. The second Christ would return, standing before the earth as a beacon of hope. His face was like the full lightning, and his voice rang with the authority of the heavens. The prophet fell before him, overcome with awe and reverence. Write to the second churches, the Christ commanded. Tell them to cleanse themselves, to purify their hearts. For those who follow in my steps will receive the crown of life, and to the others I will come like fire. And so it was that the word was passed. The gospel of the second coming spread across the earth. Each church, each congregation was called to prepare for the coming of the second Christ, to open their hearts to the suffering and the joy of the Lord's return. In bliss they would wait, and in bliss they would be saved. The air was thick with the hum of distant undulating whispers as the congregation assembled within the cold, echoing walls of the second Colossus. The faithful, clad in their humble garments, stood in silence beneath the golden glint of the sword suspended above them. It was a moment steeped in the weight of divine authority, where every breath felt like an offering, and every footstep an echo of centuries of suffering and redemption. To the churches of the second Colossus, the voice came low and resonant like a wind from the abyss itself. It was a voice that seemed to ripple through the fabric of the very air. This is what he with the golden sword says. You have been lied to and scorned because you wore my clothes. The words fell heavily upon the congregation, and there was a collective tightening of hearts, a stirring of dread and hope intertwined. You know you had to go through the oven to be sifted sevenfold. Yes, I have sent them, and you have stumbled for a certain time. As the voice echoed, a flicker of recognition passed between the faithful. The trials had been long, the burdens unrelenting, but the message was clear, unmistakable, a call to endure, to stand steadfast. The golden sword was a symbol of not only judgment, but purification. You have fallen into the hands of reavers, the voice continued, and the imagery was vivid, brutal. But you know that these are my hands, and I will form you in them. The weight of the declaration seemed to settle in the very marrow of their bones, urging them to take comfort in the idea that their suffering, while severe, was not without purpose. Fear no evil, children, for I am the one leading you and feeding you. In the stillness, the tension seemed to grow, as though the entire universe held its breath. Outside the Colossus, wolves walked, their shadows long and sinister, their eyes glinting with hunger. The imagery was not lost on the faithful, who understood that the wolves were not merely beasts of flesh, but symbols of the dangers lurking beyond their own suffering. You have been in service to foreigners in a foreign land, the voice said, and there was a momentary sense of exile in the words. An exile not just from a place, but from the comfort of their own knowing. But I was there to teach you the mysteries of the Spirit. The words wove a silent thread through the hearts of the faithful, a tapestry of divine revelation. They had been tested in ways both physical and spiritual. Each trial, each tribulation a lesson in strength and patience and endurance. I have taught you in the deepest of the pit, the voice continued, its tone unyielding, and I did not have compassion for you. I prepared a shelter for you. There was a chill in the declaration, an absence of tenderness that struck to the core of those who had suffered through the pit of despair. Yet even in the coldness, there was a flicker of warmth, a shelter prepared for them all, awaiting their arrival. Good it is then to come to silence, the voice intoned, and there was a resonant silence that followed, as though the very air was holding its breath. And good it is to be broken, for aren't you all gone astray? The words hit like the sound of a bell in the depths of a cave, reverberating through their souls. A sense of both reproach and redemption swelled within the hearts of the faithful. They had strayed, yes, But there was a return, a path to follow now that they had been reminded of their place in the grand design. "I am the good herd," the voice declared, and the image of the shepherd leading his flock through fields both green and barren emerged in their minds. "And have already come where you have your arrival." It was then that the vision expanded. The faithful felt themselves standing on the edge of something vast, a space where the boundaries of time and place dissolved. Their suffering was not merely individual but collective, and through it they had come to understand each other truly in the deepest sense of the word. "Know then that you have learned to know each other by the suffering," the voice said, "and by this you have broken through the walls of each other's hearts." The atmosphere was charged with a palpable connection, a unity forged through shared pain and mutual understanding. Be connected to each other in the suffering, the voice continued, its resonance growing stronger, more urgent, and the ice, for outside the wolves walk waiting to devour those who are lost and left behind. It was a call to remain vigilant, a call to unity, for the wolves were not merely external forces. They were the temptations, the dangers that lurked within the hearts of men and women, waiting for any sign of weakness to devour the stray, the lost. The faithful held firm to each other, their bond sealed not by comfort, but by the shared knowledge of their collective suffering. The scene shifted. The vision of the faithful dimmed, and the narrative broke through layers of time and space, shifting to a place known as the second Patmos, a barren, isolated place where the sky seemed endless, and the winds carried the scent of both salt and dust. "And I was on a place named the second Patmos, and the Lord lifted me up," the voice came again, clearer now, as though the speaker had transcended the limitations of mortal speech. The setting was stark, the winds blowing harsh against the land. Yet there was something deeply sacred in this place, a place where the divine could speak and be heard. The faithful were no longer merely a group within the colossus, but a part of something far larger, something far older. The second Patmos was a place where the spirit could speak freely, without interruption, without constraint. Then, as the vision expanded further, the voices began to speak of the netherworlds, a series of realms, dark and vast, each one a world in its own right. These were places not merely of the dead, but of deep spiritual significance, each with its own guardians, each holding mysteries beyond the reach of those still bound to the earth. "And these are the netherworlds of the pythons," the voice rang out, clear as crystal in the depths of the vision. "The first netherworld is called Caustia." The words unfolded layer by layer, each world a step into the unknown, each place a realm where different creatures and forces reign, the faithful herd of realms guarded by caproons, strange entities whose names seemed to pulse with power, and carbulans, the beings that existed in symbiosis with them. These were places of transformation, where the soul could travel and be reshaped, but only if it was willing to endure the trials of each realm. "And the seventh netherworld is Autoleta," the voice continued, its power unmistakable. "The Caprun Diodim and the Carbuline Spatimet." As the words flowed, the faithful could feel the immense weight of each netherworld. The names themselves carried an ancient power, a resonance that stirred something deep within their spirits. They were not merely descriptions, but keys to unlocking realms of understanding that transcended the physical world. Each was a part of a greater whole, a journey not of the body, but of the soul. And so the faithful knew with a quiet certainty that their own journey through suffering was not merely for their own sake, but for the sake of something much greater, a truth beyond the veil of death and rebirth. In the distant reaches of existence, where the known worlds folded into the great unknown, the netherworlds of the rainbow tiger stretched across endless horizons of cosmic mystery. The words spoken of their realms were etched in the whispers of winds that carried forgotten names and fragmented truths. The first among them, Mehetmus, the leader of the red tigers, embodied the fierceness of the universe's untamed heart. His very presence stung like the sharpest of earthly thorns. His words carried the resonance of a deep, ancient power that rang out, summoning birds of the deepest red. The shifting seas mirrored the intensity of his gaze, sifted and sea-red. To behold, Mehetmas was to witness the force of a red tiger shark, his every movement a warning of the dangers that lie beyond the veil. His world was not for the unprepared, for those grasped by the fiery red of his influence found themselves bound for the Emilus Chateau, where they would journey until the Matadak, a realm bound by forces they could scarcely comprehend. The fifth night watch would be their guide, guiding them to the red dragons who stood sentinel along the shore of time, where the ebb and flow of destiny twisted like ancient tides, restless and unstoppable. But Mehetmas was only the beginning. Beyond his world lay the 19th netherworld, a realm birthed from the shadows of white sharks, its name Dazanta, echoing with the promise of swift and unstoppable change. The Kaprun, Mostaton, and the Kabulan, Aspasheziksh, were the keepers of this place, guardians of transition and movement, bringing forth what was destined to follow. The tale continued, each subsequent world bearing its own intricacies, its own guardians. The 20th netherworld, Dazamtia, was as enigmatic as its keeper, Eknerashon, and its Karbulan, Akihastesh. These names, foreign and strange, were born from the very fabric of the universe's forgotten lore, each syllable vibrating with an ancient resonance that could not be ignored. But perhaps the most curious of all were the worlds that followed. The 21st netherworld, Smohokedashamsha, was the realm of owls and sea spiders, a place where creatures of both land and sea came together in the quiet spaces between the worlds. The sea owls, those eerie beings birthed from the deep, dark heart of the sea, served as harbingers of the coming chaos, guiding the souls who traveled through their domains to the Red City, where the Mice Hill and its watcher awaited. The cycle of the rainbow tigers was not simply a journey across realms, it was a journey into the very essence of the universe itself, where red, blue, and the colors beyond bled into each other in a mystic dance of creation and destruction. And through it all, the names of the Capruns and Carbulanes, their ever-changing roles, served as markers, shaping the paths of those who traveled through the netherworlds. Drumnaheskehout, the first of the Red Tiger's netherworlds, was the keeper of the Capruns, Carbulanes, and Kaplahuns. She knew the pencils of the orange Saturn, the tools by which the universe was sketched into existence. The Red Tigers, as enigmatic and powerful as they were, moved through these netherworlds as easily as shadows pass through light, their movements swift and deliberate. They navigated the underworlds like trains, their paths entwined with the very nerves of existence itself. One such tiger, Sardatakun, was the king of the soft realms, a figure shrouded in mystery and power. Riding the Johann, the tiger galloped through the deepest netherworlds, restoring the fleeces of the earth and the heavens themselves. The journey would take them 3 times across the expanse, each time drawing closer to the honey that awaited at the end of all things. Through the realms of soft, the heavens ate away, leading the travelers to the rippling of all existence, a place where the boundaries between past, present, and future faded away like dreams at dawn. The second netherworld of the Red Tigers, Saherton, was a place of heat and fervor, its influence felt across the very station of Nartzia. The warmth that emanated from it was felt by all who ventured too close, pulling them toward the treasures that lay hidden within its fiery embrace. And then, as the journey continued, the travelers found themselves in Semantis, the 4th netherworld, a place that had once been part of Torhan, the Tall of God. Here, the Red Tigers stored the netherworlds of Torhan, gathering them until the Matadak. It was a place where rivers stirred and the holy prophets found their rest. For it was in the depths of these places that the holy mysteries would unfold, showing those brave enough to seek the stars of the white chocolate, the star heaven of God. The deeper the travelers ventured, the more the world seemed to shift. Cabanal, the great mountain of God, stood like a sentinel on the edge of time, its treasures hidden beneath the surface. It was here that the restoration of Cabanal would take place, a city of birds, an eternity that stretched across all eternities. The wisdom of the old would guide the new, leading them through the gate of the Titmouse and beyond to the city of Cabernal, where the world ships would begin. Abdal, a figure cloaked in both mystery and power, would give birth to the first world ship. This world ship would be named Adaka, a child destined to become great before the Lord, to lead a race more numerous than the sands of the earth to the sea. Adaka would become both a tiger and an owl, a creature of the Uxlans, the owl tigers, and would lead the orange Saturn to her rightful place, guiding her people to the darknesses of Narzia through the sacred gates of Aha, the altar of the lords. Through Abdal, Mazdo, and Cabernal, a second world ship, Trideria, would be born. This ship would sail toward the netherworlds of silence, restoring ancient realms like Metensia and Karajur, and giving birth to a third world ship, Biskid, the spider tiger. Biskid would restore the orange Saturn and create a new destiny for all who followed. The journey was never easy, nor was it meant to be. With each world ship came trials, challenges, and the need for resilience. The horse tigers, too, had their own netherworlds to navigate, each hellworld a challenge unto itself, a place where the brave tested their wills against the forces of the universe itself. From Deir Dina, with its Kaplahun Maksamid, to Behelslaxes and its unyielding challenges, the path was treacherous and fraught with danger. But it was through these trials, through these hell worlds and netherworlds, that the true nature of the world ships would be revealed. The journey was not merely one of travel, but of transformation, a metamorphosis into something greater, something eternal. And so the travelers pressed on, their spirits guided by the wisdom of the red tigers, the forces of the orange Saturn, and the eternal dance of the netherworlds that stretched beyond the grasp of even the most curious souls. The dragon tigers and their realms were known only to those with deep ancient knowledge, and the world they inhabited was a place of strange worlds within worlds. Nether worlds, hell worlds, and heaven worlds, all entwined in an unfathomable, intricate tapestry. These were not places merely of darkness, but of mystery and hidden power, places where time stretched like elastic, unmarked by human understanding. Clad in the ancient sacred Tartars, they were beings of awe, draped in garments woven from the very fabric of celestial glory. The dragon tigers, mighty in their wisdom, held the songs that could open and lock the gates to the underworlds and the hells. Their chants could summon the forgotten spirits of the past, and their bodies burned with the power of the lords and the orange Saturn. As they moved, rich purple and red tones flowed from their souls, signifying their divine connection, their ability to navigate the shifting boundaries between life, death, and the unknown realms. The flow of purpure, a voice echoed in the deep silence of the night, carries the essence of God. It courses through us, opening the doors to the netherworlds, guiding us toward the feathers that lift us to the sky. The air felt thick with magic, as if the very words spoke were the threads that wove the fabric of existence itself. In the stillness, one could almost hear the distant growl of the tiger trains moving beneath the earth, the echoes of ancient wars still reverberating through their tunnels. These were the dragon kings, the leaders of the underground armies who waged battles beneath the seas, where the waves only whispered their secrets to those who dared to listen. The netherworlds were vast, immeasurable, their names spoken in hushed tones, as if their mere utterance could bring them into being. Muhuskas, Fahantahal, Spahantahal, Vakal. The list went on, each realm a kingdom of its own, each one linked to a different aspect of the dragon tiger's power. The hellworlds, too, with their twisting fiery gates, were ruled by beings whose names burned with their own terrible significance. Quikhelt, Vientral, Votion, each a harbinger of destruction and creation in equal measure. But it was the dragon tiger kings who held the greatest power, wielding their influence across the ever-shifting borders of these realms. They alone understood the true purpose of the Tartars, their divine connection to the ancient powers that governed the universe. As the black dragon tiger kings of old, the voice continued, now more insistent, We must follow the path of our ancestors. We know the ends and the points of Narsia and Zedonia. Our domain is separate, untouched by those who do not understand the nature of time and space. And there, amid the swirling forces of the universe, stood the black dragon tiger king, a figure of paradox. His face, pale as the moonlight, contrasted sharply with the rest of his form, which was dark, almost otherworldly. He was the weaver of fates, the one who spun the great threads that connected all worlds together, seen and unseen. Do you not see the blind child behind the spinning wheel? The voice whispered again, soft as the wind through the trees. He is the black dragon tiger king, with his white face and his black body. His purpose is to watch the gray rags, to feel them, and to trace them back to where they came from. The surroundings seemed to shimmer as the air grew heavy with the presence of ancient powers. Time, space, and reality itself bent under the weight of their magic. The Black Dragon Tiger King's kingdom was unlike any other. An isolated domain, untouched by the light of the other worlds. Everything is black here, the voice said, but in the stretching, white will emerge and gray will weave together all the colors. This is the nature of the dragon tigers, darkness and light, destruction and creation, all bound in one eternal dance. In the distance, the figure of the dragon tiger king could be seen moving, his form so white, so otherworldly against the stark black of the universe that surrounded him. He was not alone. Alongside him, 4 beings stood: Casbahascus, Muskanos, Grisamon, and Fanatusk, ancient entities whose names carried the weight of eons. These were the weavers of time, the ones who shaped the great patterns of existence, much like bakers and weavers, turning the cosmic loom with each passing second. Like bird clocks, the voice mused, they spread their wings to lead creatures away. Yes, they are the dragon hours, vast nets that capture great fishes. Each of the weavers had their own unique powers. Casbahascus, the sparrow, the blackbird, a creature who perched on the great Mesedium, waiting to dive into the river of fate. Muskanos, with her silver hair like waves, vomited new days and hours, carrying the weight of battle on her tablet. Grisamoon, the black Libra, stood as a clown with spinning holes through which time itself could wander. And Thanatos, with her green eye, her green stone, spoke in a tongue that was like the voice of mice. Their time is coming, the voice said, now deep with the weight of prophecy. They are the Night Latins, the weavers who change the very fabric of time. They will guide the dragon tigers through the fiery brocades to the red tiger dragons on the beaches of the Emilis Chateau. But beneath this grand spectacle of cosmic events, there were more intimate personal stories unfolding, stories of struggle and survival, of creatures battling against forces greater than themselves. In the heart of these realms, the bear of Narsia roamed, a mighty creature of fire and fury, chasing after all who dared to defy its will. The heat was unbearable, and only the will of the gods could stand against it. In a vision, a small man sat holding a flute. As the bears approached, the man began to play, and the creatures, once filled with rage, fell silent. But the music was not enough. The man grew tired, and the bears attacked. The Lord, watching, spoke of the necessity of taming nations, of guiding them with song and strength. Like this, you will tame the nation, the Lord said. I will give you the songs for that. And so the world continued its endless spinning, each note, each step, a part of the greater weave of existence, where even the smallest action could shift the balance of fate. The star heaven of the white chocolate. In the farthest reaches of the heavens, beyond the veils of time and space, there existed a celestial realm known as the white chocolate. This realm was divided into 4 districts, each as unique as the stars themselves. These districts were named Sapanda, Eklaf, Benglaham, and Kelb, but it was Sapanda that shone most brightly, its stars glistening like jewels across the vast expanse of the universe. The stars of Sapanda were many, each one a living, breathing entity, each holding its own significance. The first among them was Khnum, followed by Zukum and Skum, each possessing a radiance that could not be described by mere mortals. Among these, the stars wore names and titles, almost like the adornments of kings. Some were the hats of colors: Jmin, the orange hat; Zim, the blue hat; Im, the purple hat. Others, like Zekem and Skem, wore the green hat, while Mem adorned a brown hue. And others still, like Khnum II and Zim, held the title of the Lord's mirrors, beacons of light for the beings below. The stars of Sepanda, with their brilliant hues and divine forms, were like the reflections of the Lords themselves, captured in the glassy stillness of the night sky. The Lords who had made them, whose names were whispered like sacred chants, were beings of unfathomable power. It was said that their voices could call forth the very stars themselves, as though the heavens were an extension of their will. Ova and Namusa. The Lord's revelations were not confined to the stars alone. He showed the netherworlds, those dark realms that lay hidden beneath the surface of existence. These netherworlds were like the animals of the earth, for they too had lives and stories of their own. As the Lord's presence hovered over these realms, he revealed to me the second world ship, a vessel called Trideria, a canoe, its sleek body cutting through a green river that shimmered with the glow of an ancient magic. Inside it, a man named Ova sat, the Prince of the Oaks. He was a figure of solemn grace, his eyes knowing the secrets of the trees and their underworlds. Each day he made a journey through these hidden realms, tracing the paths of the roots and branches. Trideria, in time, had become not just a vessel but a clock, a tower of the Lord's, holding within its structure the essence of time itself. The Lord then showed me another world ship, the first of its kind, Adaka. Adaka was not a canoe but a bridge between the living and the dead, and she was as a donkey, humble and steadfast. On her rode Namusa, the prince of the Black Mountains. From him many colors flowed like the rivers of light, bending and weaving their way through the realms. Namusa, too, journeyed daily through the hell worlds, a realm as dark and twisted as the roots of the universe itself. As Trideria had become a clock, so too had Adaka transformed into a tower of the Lords, a monument to the passage of time and the trials of the Spirit, the language of the Lord. The Lord's voice, when he spoke, was as the thunder, a sound that rippled through the very fabric of reality. He spoke of those who had reached the land of the tired ones, those who had crossed the threshold of the known and ventured into the unknown. It was here that the Lord planted the rabbit tree, a tree whose roots dug deep into the earth, its branches reaching toward the heavens. The tree grew, and with it, the land surrounding it began to change. The Lord spoke again, this time of protection. Those who reached the land of the tired ones will be shielded from the suffering of the world. The tree became a tower, and as it grew, all the trees around it bowed in reverence, for it had become a symbol of divine power. Yet the Lord's words were not without their warnings. He spoke of the Catastrophics, those beings who would experience 1,000-fold restoration, but who would also find pride a burden too heavy to bear. He spoke of the sparrows of Matencia, their song lost in the winds of change, and how many lands had come to the foot of the rabbit tree, drawn by its gentle light. But as the tree's fruits fell to the earth, the land began to weep, for in the fall of each fruit was the shedding of a great burden. The large book of the earth, once written in the language of the Lord, had lost its power, and Matencia, once mighty, had become pale before the face of the Lord. In the quiet of this transformation, the second book of the Lord was written, and the people were taught in his language, learning the ways of the world through the words of their divine Creator. New books were written, each one a testament to the Lord's power, salvation through the rabbit tree. It was said that those who called upon the rabbit tree in times of despair would be saved when the wrath of Narsia, a great and terrible force, came to the earth. But the Lord warned many would call upon him, saying, Lord, Lord, and yet he would not know them. For they had forgotten the poverty that leads to bliss, the humility required to truly understand the grace of salvation. How difficult it would be for the rich to enter into the kingdom of heaven, the Lord declared, for they had forgotten the true nature of the divine, Khnum and the four world ships. Then the rabbit came, and with her, the fourth world ship, a vessel of intoxication filled with the dreams of the heavens. She became as a jewel in the crown of the lords, her body adorned with the tartars and purples of celestial nobility. The four world ships, now transformed into towers, stood like great branches of the rabbit tree, each one a pillar of the divine realm. And the Lord's voice spoke again, declaring that the rabbit tree had become a cross, a white cross, symbolic of the sacrifice and transcendence of the lords. Bear realms, rabbit realms, and raven realms. Far below, in the realms of sleep, the great beings of the world rested. The bears, those noble creatures, had their own sleep worlds, each one a sacred place of rest and healing. The rabbits, too, had their sleep worlds, their own mystical realms where the boundaries between life and death grew thin. The ravens, with their keen eyes, flew between the realms of the living and the dead, bringing messages and omens from the farthest reaches of the cosmos. Each of these creatures, bears, rabbits, ravens, held their own significance in the grand scheme of things. They were not mere animals, but symbols of the forces that shape the universe. Their realms, filled with magic and mystery, were as much a part of the divine order as the stars above. The new revelation V, amidst the eternal expanse, a longing stirred. A voice filled with sorrow spoke through the forest stillness. It was a voice of loss, a voice that searched through day and dew for a glimpse of a loved one long gone. The speaker could not find the one they sought, though the echoes of the past lingered in the air. Memories of a time when they sat in a boat, reading poems to a woman who had vanished in the waters, haunted the speaker's every step. And though the loved one was lost, the feeling of her presence never quite left. "I feel like stone now," the speaker whispered. "I miss something. I just don't know what." And so, through the darkened forest, the search continued as the echoes of the past rippled through the air like whispers from a forgotten time, searching for a love lost beneath the waters of eternity. The small house sat at the edge of a quiet village, its windows half open to let the evening air in. The scent of rain mingled with the earthy scent of wood, filling the room as Matencia gazed out at the sky, watching the last traces of daylight slip into twilight. The moon was hidden behind thick clouds, and a soft, almost imperceptible mist began to form on the horizon. "Mother," Matencia whispered, her voice trembling, as if unsure whether the words were meant for herself or for the world beyond her. "These tears are so expensive, more expensive than gold. They turned my stomach around." She placed a hand over her heart, feeling the pressure rise as a dark cloud of unease settled over her thoughts. Her mother, standing by the window, turned her gaze upon her daughter with quiet, knowing eyes. She did not respond immediately, but instead watched the faint, swirling patterns of the wind outside, the way it seemed to twist and bend with an intelligence of its own. It was the same wind that brought the Carajur, a figure of mystery both revered and feared. "Father is still coming home tonight," Matencia continued, her voice quivering with a mixture of hope and dread. "And the Carajur, she will come with him." Her eyes narrowed as she thought of the figure, adorned in jewelry made of wind and snow, a being that only those who cherished her could understand. "Love," she said softly, almost to herself, "is as a fire, as the pink Carajur, but I do not dare to watch anymore. Father is still coming home." The words seemed to evaporate in the cool air, dissolving into the silence of the room. Her mother, still standing by the window, did not move, but her gaze shifted to Matencia, whose eyes now flickered with an inner fire, an unsettling and profound fire. "Can I forget everything now?" Matencia asked, her mind swimming in thoughts that felt both distant and near. "Since she has turned off the light, it is almost night. Or is it already time to wake up?" The house seemed to grow darker as the night began to settle in. Shadows stretched long across the floor, and the air felt thick with the weight of the unseen. "Matencia," her mother finally spoke, her voice low and soothing. "As the sun in fair fields, the Carajur waits silently where it is always silent. Father will come home soon. The rain is falling already." Matencia could hear the distant sound of doors closing in the barn, preparing for the night's rest. She turned toward the sound, her mind racing with thoughts she could not quite control. I hear the doors of the barn. Now they are closed, ready for the night. Matencia stands as a guard. Her animal has taken us? Her fingers twitched, unsure whether what she had seen was real or a figment of her imagination. I have really seen it, or are these just strange dreams? Her mother's voice reached her again, distant yet comforting. Mother, have you seen it as well, or is she not here yet? The question hung in the air like a fragile thread, connecting them across the vastness of the unknown. There is a plate for her on the table, and for the carriageur, the flesh of those who hate her. The words carried with them an eerie weight, as if the entire house had been woven into a tapestry of fate, something far beyond the mundane. God, who are we luring? Matencia's voice faltered, the words slipping into a mournful prayer. The lightning always strikes in. Is it your spirit or the new morning food for the carriageur? The wind picked up, howling outside, and Matencia felt a strange pull deep within her chest. God's angels are there, she whispered, her eyes distant as she stared into the darkened horizon. Farmers of the heavens. God, who are we luring now? Which plants shoot up from the farm field? She stood up, her limbs stiff, as if drawn by some unseen force. I leave this house alone once again, my hair wild, mother, the intensive cherish, the temple in the honeycomb. The feeling of being caught between worlds pressed against her, as though she were no longer quite herself. Who is luring us now, in this holy hour? Her eyes were wide, searching, lost. Who makes a living in us? Where are we making a living? The questions came unbidden, tumbling out of her like a flood. She gripped her arms tightly as if to hold herself together. Or am I just alone? Matencia whispered, between the thistles of the field, without the color of a crowning, without home, without living, grasped by a beast. The weight of her thoughts grew heavier, pulling her deeper into the mysterious and unknowable. Who made me? Why am I here? Where do I come from? Where am I going? Am I really who I think I am, or am I someone else? Her breath caught in her throat. The carriageur was coming to her. She felt it, and everything around her seemed to change, shifting in ways that defied understanding. Then things go different and seem to be different. Can I still trust my thoughts? She laid them down in silence, placing them in the hands of God, uncertain whether her faith would provide the answers she so desperately sought. In the dim light of the evening, Matencia and her mother stood in the quiet house. As the air seemed to hum with an ancient, almost sacred energy. The storm outside had passed, but the atmosphere felt heavy, as though the heavens themselves were holding their breath. Matencia, her mother spoke again, her voice gentle yet firm. Friend of God, whatever you do, it is your fate. You paint the paths of destiny, the fallen leaves of time. The sun always shines a different light upon us. Matencia nodded silently, her heart heavy with the realization that the path before her was already written, that she was only a traveler on a journey that she had not chosen. I do not grasp tightly anymore, she said softly. I let go of everything. The sense of release brought a bittersweet peace to her. Are we missing something? She continued, a flicker of doubt crossing her mind. I am so full of hate, and yet I am only guessing. Her words fell away into the darkening room, lost in the wind that whispered through the cracks in the walls. The world outside felt far away now, as if Matencia was standing on the edge of two realms. The carriageur was still out there, somewhere in the dark, waiting. And with her, the promise of something greater, something both terrifying and beautiful. Her mother's voice was a soft murmur in the growing silence. In the pink covenant we experience, we recognize each other, we know each other. You with the green hood, your daughter with the red. Can you understand us here, in the house, with the doors cracked open? Matencia closed her eyes, feeling the weight of her mother's words, the unspoken understanding between them. "No, you never hurt me," she whispered, as though the words were a prayer. "You always gave me the carajure, like a guard in the night for 4 times." And in the quiet darkness they stood together, bound by something ancient and unbreakable. The storm had passed, but the world had changed forever. The air was thick with the weight of forgotten words and old promises as the figure before me loomed, silent, the same weight of a cross bearing down upon them. I stared deeply, feeling the sharpness of their gaze penetrate through me like the pointed edge of a spear. The vision before me was not merely a face, it was an embodiment of something ancient, something unspoken. "You stare deep," the voice murmured, low and distant, as though it was caught in a dream, fragments of thoughts trailing off. "You have watched me a while ago, like the scorn robe of the cross you hang over me, with a spear in my side." The words, harsh yet intimate, reached into me, pulling something from deep within my chest, something that had been dormant for too long. "Child," the voice continued, now softer, almost tender, "I have laid it down and given to you this heritage of the past." The weight of those words struck me harder than any blow could. It was not just a gift being handed over, it was a mantle of sorrow, a legacy woven from threads of pain and redemption. "It has driven me to bliss," the figure spoke, eyes distant yet filled with yearning. "You have to go through it as well. It is only for a short time." But I could not grasp the meaning of it all. The words were broken and scattered, floating in the ether like disconnected fragments. "You stare deep, so fragmentaric," I whispered to myself. So many words broken away from each other. I don't know where they lead me. I cannot understand it. The confusion, thick as fog, clouded my mind, and yet there was an undeniable pull towards them, a force that made me long to understand, to be part of this puzzle. "Mother!" I cried out, my voice trembling. "Have you finally come? Your child has waited for you so long on its post, looking around." There was so much longing in those words, so much yearning for presence that had been absent for far too long. They told me not to believe in you, only the Father was still there. The heaviness of those words stung, sharp and biting, but there was no anger in me, only a hollow ache, a space that could never be filled. "Mother," I repeated, the sorrow in my voice deepening, "they have taken everything away from me, even my dreams. They do not see me standing anymore." The sense of loss gripped me, threatening to choke the breath from my lungs. "I have mutilated myself so often. I cannot take it anymore." The figure moved closer, their presence overwhelming, yet strangely comforting. They spoke again, their voice now soft, threaded with a kind of sorrow I couldn't understand. "It is bleeding when you are embroidering," they whispered. "Like a spider you sting." What did I do? "I'm so glad you are here. But why do you not take my wounds away?" The question hung in the air, unanswered, as I stood before them, torn between the deep ache of my own wounds and the desperate hope for healing. "Are you then a dove of the cross?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, "as a bird of suffering to bring us a message?" The words felt strange as they left my lips, and yet they felt like a truth I had always known but could never express. The fog in my mind thickened, and I felt myself falling, as if I were trapped in a pit, struggling to see through the layers of confusion. "So many fogs before my eyes," I murmured, "like falling in a deep pit. Your webs have caught me up." I felt the weight of something tangible, like invisible threads pulling me in every direction, tightening with each passing second. "I'm trapped in your love," I confessed, the words tasting bitter on my tongue. "No path out of it. I will have to stay here." It wasn't a plea nor a cry for help. It was an acceptance, a resigned surrender to something larger than myself. "I do not know everything, but I know life. Everything is only for a short time." And then the figure spoke again, their voice a soft echo in the silence. "Silently you will change meanings and the faces of man." Their words wrapped around me like a cloak, heavy with meaning, yet elusive. "Rosethorn," they whispered, the name as delicate as the petals of a long-forgotten flower. Like a choir you embraced me. Rosethorn as the window of love. The image of roses, thorns, and all filled my mind. their sharp edges mingling with the soft promises of love, of healing. "No enemies anymore," they murmured. "Everything is the needle of the Lord." The word needle lingered in my thoughts, evoking 1,000 images. The slow, painful pricks of healing, the sharp sting of the truth that could neither be avoided nor embraced. "Oh, yes," the figure continued, their voice now a mere sigh. "Everything stings so deep, but it is you who called me, Rosehorn," I whispered, feeling the tears welling in my eyes. The pain, the love, the confusion, they all mingled together in an overwhelming tide, as an echo in the night, making all the hardness soft. "So many cords of your love woven through my wounds until everything sinks under the pink." And I knew in that moment that I could not understand it all. I could not grasp the full weight of what was happening, but the threads of pain and tenderness had become intertwined, impossible to separate. "I do not know how to lay it down," I murmured, the sorrow deep within me. "It stings so deep, and it pulls me away all the time. It sticks. It is the glue of the Lord, and everything pierces my soul in bed." The words felt foreign in my mouth, yet they were the only truth I had left. "I feel so weak," I whispered, my legs trembling beneath me, my vision spinning. "I cannot stand. I am trembling, and everything is spinning around me. Did the Lord take me to him, or am I dreaming strangely?" The figure watched me with an expression I couldn't read, their gaze softening as they reached out, but I couldn't move, couldn't respond. "I feel sick, close to death," I confessed. "I feel like a tree in dark streets. Believe me, when someone would see me here, they would watch straight through me. The foam of the law has made me transparent." "I am already gone," I whispered. "My shadow is still here." The words seemed to float into the air, disappearing as quickly as they had been spoken, and yet they lingered in the silence between us, a testament to the truth I could not fully understand. "Rosehorn," I whispered again, "I can only weep, and further I do not understand anything." Colors had faded. The world was now only black and white, and in the distance I could hear the king of mice calling me, his voice echoing through the void. "Outside the stars shine," I murmured, "standing in the skies at the wall. I have lost courage to go back. The mice of the heavens lead me away. The rats of the heavens watch and stare like the thorn rose." But despite the fear, despite the overwhelming sense of despair, there was something in me that still hoped. The journey was long, but it had to lead somewhere. It had to, because everything was only for a short time.